Small step for man, giant leap for mankind.
Let's go.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the UnFuckIt Discussion. It's October. Welcome to October. We are now in Spooktober time, as everyone's calling it, which is something I want to someone remind me to get back to that too, because there's something going on there. It's fucking October. As I keep saying, don't know how we're in October already. I just don't understand it. Good evening, Gabby, out there in Twitch land. Where to start? I want to start tonight with some of the latest articles coming out. Some news articles and shit. And like we talked last week about how there's been just a ton of articles keep coming out that are talking about space. That whole bit about ETs and spaceships, and we've been talking about this for a few months now, how that all seems to be being put right back into our faces again, that, you know, we're not alone in the universe, all these questions, all the stuff that has been going on, especially this year, the releasing of different kinds of information. But like I said, news stories that you're like, what? They can't believe they're actually saying some of this shit. So I want to share a couple things with you. So give me a moment here. Okay, we don't want to be there. Okay, here we go. Scroll up. And I'm really sorry. Usually I'm pretty good at being able to close down all the damn advertisements. But today, for some reason, Google Ads are being ass wipes, and they just don't want to close down. So one of the first articles, this yesterday morning, this came out, or yesterday evening, I should say. I woke up to it this morning. We're about to find life on Mars, but the world is not prepared, NASA scientist warns. So we're about to find life on Mars. Now, you get into it and you find it's a proof article. You know what I mean? It's a whole that they're going to be digging through rocks. They're sending their rovers in. And they're going to dig through rock samples and test for biology, and if they should find any biological life in those rock samples, you know, like bacteria. Oh my gosh, it's going to open a whole new world of astrobiology and blah blah blah. But take note of that. Take note of the heading, the title. We're about to find life on Mars, but the world is not prepared. So, does anyone on Earth give two shits if there's living bacteria on Mars? No. Does anyone give two shits if there's little tiny bugs running around on Mars? No. So, why would the world be not prepared to find out that there's life on Mars that's of that nature? A complete fucking disconnect. Like, complete disconnect. Followed by, going to our next article, on RT this morning, alien probes spying on Earth. Scientists warns of possible lurkers in the solar system. Same thing. RT is mainstream news. Much as they'd like to try and say that they're, alternative news, etc., they're mainstream, read by millions and millions and millions of people every day. Is Earth under the watchful eye of lurking extraterrestrial spy probes? One U.S. physicist argues that while it's a distant possibility, it wouldn't hurt to send out probes of our own to take a look and make sure. Which is kind of ridiculous in and of itself. Scroll down here. Give me a second here. In his paper, Benford not only offers possible sites for extraterrestrial probes, but suggests ways researchers might look for evidence of the alien tech, ranging from using optical and radio telescopes to sending spacecraft out there. Because, you know, space, it's so small, you could just send a spacecraft, go out there and just go find all these, you know, things out there in outer space. Best line. Given its close and constant presence near Earth, one might think the moon would make the better spy station than more distant co-orbitals. But Benford said any particular section of the moon's surface is in darkness for 2 weeks at a time, depriving any probe of the solar energy it might need to function. Okay, first of all, the outlandishness of that complete statement, that somehow they think the extraterrestrials that hid probes on the moon would need solar power, is kind of laughable, because, you know, they would never be beyond us in power and generation. But the moon, and how many times have we talked about the moon being an artificial construct? It's very obviously an artificial construct when you look at it, and the stories, you know, when they landed on the moon, it rang like a bell for 30 minutes. Oh, look, my internet connection is unstable. How delightful. Can you guys hear me? Hopefully.
You're back.
I'm John, I swear to fuck. Guys, okay, so before we go any farther with this, I've had a problem for the last 2 shows. I can talk on Zoom 4 hours to all kinds of people, never have a problem. The show last week and the show week that was 3 weeks before that, my Zoom kept crashing so badly that the recordings that I took from my side were destroyed, and we had to use the live stream recordings, which is all, that means all the after show discussions were wiped out. It only happens Wednesday night. I've had multiple multi-hour discussions with all kinds of people and groups of people, and I don't have a single problem, but every fucking Wednesday night at 10 Central European time, when we go live, this fucking bullshit happens. So, calling bullshit where I see it. I do not consent. Stop fucking with my Zoom. Stop fucking with my internet. Anyways. So again, we have another article. Within 2 days, alien probes spying on the Earth. Not to mention on top of piles and piles of other pieces, little tidbits that have been coming out all over the place this year. This is just in 2 days. Now, the other interesting one, and I think we talked about this last week, we talked about the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy just got extremely hungry. We talked about this last show. And how it's talking about that big black hole at the center of our galaxy is all of a sudden gone super active and started gobbling up shit left, right, and center. Now this came out 2 days ago, or 3 days ago. Planet X might just be a bowling ball sized black hole in our solar system. Like, there's no words on for some of this stuff. Like, you just, their excuse is saying mathematical evidence for a planet dubbed Planet 9 or Planet X by space scientists was revealed by Caltech researchers in 2015. This strange object, they said, could have a mass of 10 times that of Earth and take up to 20,000 Earth years to complete one orbit at the sun. Now they're suggesting that this Planet X isn't a planet at all, but it might be a planet mass black hole that's the size of a bowling ball. Just a few days ago, they put out another news article. I took the piss for 2 days on social media, saying that they've discovered 6 small galaxies that have no black matter in them. Can you imagine? They have no black matter. Oh my gosh. Well, then that just breaks all the laws of physics. So they're trying to get us to believe that they've found these galaxies and are somehow able to tell that those galaxies don't have black matter. And yet they can't even find black matter in our solar system. Black matter is a theory that they've never once been able to prove that it actually exists, even in our own solar system. But now all of a sudden, apparently NASA has found 6 galaxies that don't contain black matter, which is then breaking the laws of physics. The asinineness of some of the science that's coming out right now is beyond ludicrous. It's the kind of thing that your jaw drops on the floor and you sit there and go, it's so illogical, so crazy illogical. But we talk about transparency, right? Like we keep talking about this whole thing, go back, we want to see some transparency, we want to see some transparency. Well, some of these articles are seriously massive, massive amounts of transparency. Because holy shit, they've got to be either A, smoking crack, or B, they're just making up shit now. It's like they got to come up with stuff that supports their outlandish theories that they cannot prove. They've got to keep themselves relevant. Actually, on that exact point, but nothing to do with space, there was a brilliant video came out. I watched it it was put in the Unfuckers group on Facebook, and I found the link on YouTube. So someone please remind me. I will embed it with this recording. It's a guy who's a doctor he's an MIT. He's got 4 degrees from MIT. This guy's not just some like high school flunky type scientist. This guy's hardcore. He put together the most brilliant explanation, like I said, nothing to do with space, explaining the vaccine bullshit, explaining the reasons why all this vaccine craziness is going on right now from the scientific perspective of the difference between academics versus scientists, how they actually do vaccine testing, how they actually put together the science on this. It is an hour and a half long. It should be vital reading for any single person who has children or is being forced or considering taking vaccines, because he lays it out in so concise a clear way that you cannot miss it. And like I said, this isn't just some guy on YouTube. He's a professor. He's got 4 degrees from MIT. You really can't get much higher than this guy when it comes to being a scientist. And so someone please remind me, drop me a message in Messenger to embed that link as well, because it's well worth noting. One of the things he talks about is how science is done. And he talks about academics, and he says you have to understand that academics aren't scientists. We assume academics are scientists. That doesn't actually mean it's true. Academics are working towards getting tenure. Tenure means that they basically get a salary for the rest of their lives. In order to do that, you have to put out papers. You have to put out papers, and they have to be peer reviewed, and they have to be accepted papers. Otherwise, you will not get the backing for your projects, for your theories, etc. Well, the only way you can put out papers that will get the backing that you want to so you can attain tenure is to basically suck the dick off of every other academic who came before you. That's what you have to do. So basically, and he gave an example. He said, like, if you're Joe Blow and you're doing your PhD and you're doing it on pancreatic cancer, and you've got a new theory of how to go about working, like curing pancreatic cancer, and the chief academic of your university is head of the Cancer Society for America, the only way you're going to get your theory looked at is to basically suck her off. You're going to have to just butter her up. You're going to have to do anything it takes to get her to basically cite your paper so that therefore your paper becomes legitimate, which means that basically you have paper after paper after paper, whether it's medical science, whether it's astrophysics, whether it's chemistry, biology, doesn't matter. It all runs the same way. To get your papers out, you have to suck up to those who are the power brokers in the mainstream. Otherwise, your paper won't get seen. Your paper will not go any further. Which means that it's basically the same repeated science is continuously repeated to keep the mainstream alive. And no brokerage beyond that is allowed. Because you'll never get your PhD, you'll never get past it if you don't go along with the head honchos who are above you. Which is really, really interesting, especially when we talk about this shit, right? The dark matter. The failure on all sides for anyone to be able to sit there and go, okay, obviously it doesn't exist, folks. So somewhere along the lines, our mathematics and our theories just don't work. We need to go back to the drawing board and figure it out again. It doesn't happen. They're just going to keep pushing. Even as more evidence comes out of the electromagnetic universe, they're still going to keep perpetuating their existing laws of physics because it's the only way they can get published. So that was really, really interesting. I am sorry, all of a sudden it's gotten very hot in here and I'm like sweating to death. The other thing I want to show you, oh, it's not there. Where is it? Please tell me I've got it out here. Come up. No. Here. There we go. Okay, so there's a couple of videos that we've been discussing. And I put them out in the Unfuckers groups. Said, take a look. This first one is called Enter the Matrix. It's only, I think it's 16 minutes long, 15, 16 minutes long. I can't tell, but it's very short. It's not very long at all. And it's made up of video clips of TED Talks, various talk show hosts, scientists talking about the uploading of consciousness into a computer. And this is hardcore stuff. Like, these scientists who are presenting their information are presenting it as in, this is done. This is not, it might be done. It's like, it can be done. It will be done. Various documentation coming out of government, leaked documents, and stuff that's been come out through, your typical, usual CIA type stuff. It's very interesting when you realize that DARPA has been on this for years. And I've always said, if they put out a news article in 2015 talking about DARPA's working on an experiment to allow them to be able to download consciousness, you know that if they're putting out that article, that means this is already done. They don't go public with these kind of things of, oh, here's a little experiment that we're working on right now, unless it's done. And not just done, but has been done for a long time. It's well in use. So have a listen. This is an interesting piece. It's just a piece. It's one that we put on the table. But we've talked about the concept of that we're living in a computer program, that we're living in a hologram, etc. This kind of outlines how it could be done. And when we talk about things, let me rephrase that. When we take certain subjects and we say, for example, we talk about Mandela effects and we talk about time loops and we talk about all these crazy woo-woo things that we talk about, this theory does not leave out any of those things. Any one of these things that we talk about all the time could fit within this theory, i.e. the idea of time loops. If you're in a computer program, time loops would be a pretty fucking easy thing to do. Mandela effects, same thing. We've talked about that whole thing, version 2.1, version 2.2, version 2.3, and some of us just don't get the updates, which is why we're running both systems simultaneously and not understanding why we can remember both things. Interesting video. So it's in the article. It'll go with this one from tonight's show. This is another one. This is one, and this will lead us. This is actually going to lead us into probably our main conversation for tonight. The video was just uploaded in the last month. The original language that the video was recorded in is Romanian. Someone took the time to subtitle it. Now, some of the subtitles get difficult to read, so you're going to have to struggle through because sometimes you have a very light background and all the subtitles are in white, so there's times where you're kind of pausing it and trying to read what it says. But somebody translated the whole thing into English. It's called Conflict in Space. It's an hour and a half long. But because it's subtitles, if you're pretty good at reading, if you're a fast reader, you can easily click your speed up to be 2 times speed and still be able to read all the subtitles and just mute the volume because you don't need to hear the words if you don't speak Romanian. It's a mixture of what I get from it, kind of channeled information, remote viewing, a little bit of both. And you know, I don't usually bring this kind of stuff up very often. But the original video was recorded in 2014, which makes some of the information they give here very, very interesting. Some of the things they talk about are time loops and the creation of time loops and how these time loops were created by the bad guys to extend their control, to extend what they were trying to do. Now, 2014, no one was talking about time loops. 2018, 2019, about all we ever talk about now is fucking time loops. But back in 2014, this was not something that was talked about. Some of the other things that are, let's say, hinted at in this could very well be the kind of stuff we talk about that are Mandela effects. They're talking about these things going back in time and changing the past, which then changes reality. So it's very interesting that they bring up several subjects in 2014 that now are extremely relevant, but back then, nobody would have had a clue. Nobody would have had a fucking clue or would have caught on to this information. The other part about this is it talks about, and we're going to get into the woo-woo now, it talks about a massive space battle that took place, apparently, at the end of 2013, beginning of 2014, between the good guys and the bad guys. And I'm not, you know me, I don't do the names, I don't do all the titles, never mind the details, kind of take that kind of to the name of this main ship, who fucking cares? That's when you get into narrative type stuff. So I'm looking at not the details, I'm looking at the bigger picture. And one of the pieces to this that it was very interesting because when I originally listened to this, I had no idea when it was recorded. So I thought it was relatively newer, like in the last couple of years, in which case some of the conversations are stuff that we have talked about. So you just think, okay, well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's legitimate because he could just be copying what other people have already said. Drop it back into 2014. At the time, there was a lot of psychics, a lot of remote viewers who talked about seeing a massive space battle, massive space battles, plural, and talked about the fact that they were not happening on this level of reality, if you will call us our reality here, call it the 3D, for example, much as I hate to use those descriptors. This is the 3D. It was not taking place in our reality. It was like a level above us. It was a level over from us, whether you want to call it. They call it in this video, they call it in the etheric realms, whatever. Let's just call it, say, it wasn't happening visibly here. I.e., we couldn't look in the sky and see it. I myself back then, in the remote viewing I was doing, saw several space battles. Massive, massive, like Star Wars type space battles that were huge. So when a video like this comes out from 2014, and I know it's in that relative time period, it's very interesting because, again, it's bringing forward information that a lot of people I saw, that a lot of people I knew saw at the same time. So it gives a certain amount of legitimacy to the information that we were getting then. Then you enter the stuff about time loops. And the one thing I've put forward on this show several times in the last few years is the fact that because time is not a set thing. Time outside of this reality is irrelevant. So a lot of the stuff that we see happen, see as in remote viewing, a lot of the energetic work, if you will, that has been done, we began to realize in 2015 that a lot of it was happening outside of time. So you may have done the work in November 2013 in this reality, but that doesn't mean that that was actually taking place. What you were working on was November 2013. There was stuff that we then saw fall into place 2015, 16, 17, 18, 19, right up to this year. So when you realize that a lot of this stuff that doesn't take place on our physical realm, or may not be taking place in this physical realm, is outside of time. And then you start talking about these time loops, things all of a sudden start to make you question a lot of different shit that we've talked about, or especially over the last few years. The other video that, and I have not had a chance to finish watching this yet, I've only watched about the first 25 minutes. We've talked about Asette's videos before. She's done some very interesting, she's put out some very interesting information. She did a live stream yesterday. One of the things that she talks about is dreams of seeing massive amounts of ships in the sky and our reality. So basically like looking up in the sky and seeing ships, spaceships everywhere in the sky, which is something I have seen on multiple occasions, and a lot of other people have seen on multiple, when I say seen, remote viewed, on multiple occasions, especially between 2011 to about 2015. And it seems like these dreams are suddenly starting to happen again. I had one a few months ago, which I haven't had one of these in years. We were talking about the other kind of dreams like Men in Black type dreams are suddenly seeming to be happening again. Those kind of dreams where you're approached by someone in your dream, the typical kind of, as we call them, the Men in Black, or the Watchers, the Observers type feel to them. So this is all seemingly coming back around again. I'll stop the share now. Very, very interesting. The last few shows we've talked about this, how everything seems to be cycling around again. Certain subjects, so aliens, ET, spaceships, UFOs, all this has all come right back smack dab where it was in 2013, where everyone was talking about it, all the shows were talking about all these things, talking about disclosure. And now we have mainstream news here basically giving tiny disclosure of, life is about to be found on Mars. And, the aliens have been watching us throughout our solar system. Might be the moon, maybe. These are all small pieces that are all coming back again. And I find it very, very interesting. We keep talking about cycles, and we keep talking about the idea of time loops. And this, again, 2013 feel, 2012, 2013 feel seems to be feeling really, again, accurate, as in like now, as if we've somehow, I don't want to say looped back to, but reconnected maybe that's a better word, reconnected to that timeline. Interesting shit. Dreams have been off the hook for a lot of people. And interestingly enough, we talked about it last week, and it was after the show, after the recording went out, that all of a sudden I got a pile of messages from people. So we talked about how last week a lot of people had really, really strange fucking events happen. Time anomalies being a big one. A lot of people seem to have had a lot of strange time anomalies. And then I got the messages after the show went out, and it was like, oh, this was even a lot more people having these anomalies than I anticipated. And some of the examples are extraordinary. where people lost entire days last week. And not strangers. I'm talking like people as in our Unfuckers. In our Unfuckers group, there were several people who talked about losing days and how reality completely doing a flip around change. Like I said, my son was supposed to have his wisdom teeth pulled out. Totally forgot about the appointment on Tuesday. Totally forgot that he had this appointment. Gets a phone call on the Monday saying, "Reminder, you have your dentist appointment tomorrow to get your wisdom teeth pulled." His understanding that he was getting 2 wisdom teeth, and he was sure he was only getting the 2 that had grown out. And he got there, and they were like, "No, you're scheduled to have all 4 pulled out." And he was like, "No, only 2. I discussed it with the dentist." They're like, no, all 4 are being pulled. And he was really weirded out. He was just like, "Mom, I know that I was only supposed to have 2 pulled out. So, but when I get there, they were insisting, no, it's all right here. The dentist said all 4. These kind of weird changes. These kind of weird time anomalies. And time anomalies have been happening all week. I've had several myself where all of a sudden you literally lose an hours of time. An hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, it just disappears. And occasionally you get them back. Like instead of time going that really fast, all of a sudden you turn around and it's like, it's still only 3 o'clock. That can't be possible. I've done this, and this. It's almost as if like you've had 2 hours added to your time. So, yeah. So I don't know. Do you guys want to, before I go off rambling off anymore, do you guys want to jump in if anyone wants to add anything to the conversation at this point? Because it's been fucking weird week.
Just one little point that goes to what you started out with, Danny, not what you're talking about now, which is more interesting, by the way, to me anyway. On that science thing that you were talking about in the beginning.
Yep.
The real science is being done on what do we watch on Sunday? We watch Fringe, right? It's on the scientific fringes that anything is going to be found out, not in the mainstream, and because the mainstream works exactly like you said. It's a reality. It's always been that way. But that doesn't mean that research isn't being done, but it's being done just like in the fringe division, a secret within these different secretive groups like Black Ops, like Skunk Works, like that right off the top of my head.
Yep.
And the CIA and all of these different specialized secret governmental programs, and also industry does it too. But the information is highly controlled and classified, so the mainstream people don't get it. All we get is the pap that they serve from this system that is, like you described, on the PhD situation. If you don't do what they want, you don't get it. So people learn, oh, okay, I want it, so therefore I'll do what I have to do.
I have to play by their rules to get it, if that's what I want.
Right. But there is such a thing as real research being done, but we don't have access to it. The only reason we know anything about this right now, Dan, just for a second, I'll shut up again. The only reason we know anything about this at all is because of the internet. Prior to that, we didn't. Nope. All we had access to was books or formal education, and formal education is the system. Books is really the system pretty much too. You have to really, really find some arcane stuff. And most people don't even if they go looking for it, it's not available. And you have to know what to look for before you can look for it, right? Absolutely. I know this game because I played it for a long, long time. Before 1999, that's all I had. Except personal intuition, but I mean, we all have that. Yeah. The internet has been the gold mine for all of this stuff. And it's been a long slog. 20 years, Dan. Well, it has been 20 years. And we've been through a whole lot of stuff, finding out what it is. But first we had to find out what they're saying. It took time, like the Brock Raider thing. That didn't just happen in 5 minutes. You had to watch hours and hours and hours, beginning to end. And you didn't know it was right or wrong. You had to investigate and double check and research and then feel it and interpret it. And then you might say, okay, parts of this is right, parts of it's wrong. I got to move on because it's not leading me where I need to go. And then we go to somebody else. And then we do the same thing. And then we go to somebody else and we do the same thing. And that's what we've been doing for the last 20 fucking years, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, and the
Hey,
thing
you
about
know,
science is what you're. Hold on, Penny. Just give me 2 seconds. The thing what you were just saying about science, Maureen. You're right, because all this stuff is going on, and you know they've got ways of measuring and all this stuff, but it is so compartmentalized that even if there's one scientist somewhere heavily researching one thing, it's so compartmentalized that even within the military, you could have one scientist working over here on this and someone else is over here, and they don't share information because it's all top secret. So you get all these things that are going on all at the same time, even within other countries as well. Like, we're not talking about NASA and the Pentagon, but you got to talk Russia, China, India, all these places. They're all doing this, but it's all kept.
Yep.
And they don't share information.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that is going on. And then we have us and people like us that are getting inputs that aren't being fed to us from the standard sources.
Yeah.
And we're sitting here saying, I got this, but I can't prove it. Like, again, that's that intuition thing that we talk about periodically in versions and approaches to that subject matter. We know what's going on, but we can't prove it to one another. All we can do is relay life experience.
Yep.
And we're finding, again, via this medium, that we're not just the only one in the world that are just going through versions of the same thing, and then we're comparing notes, and that's what we're really doing. And it's leading somewhere, but we're not there yet. That's the frustration. We're not there yet, but we're getting a clearer and clearer vision than we used to have. Doesn't mean it's 2020 by a long shot.
well, I would like to add on to Murray's, okay?
Yeah.
Because there's also 2 other sources we get this information from. One is, like you said, the scientific community, right? They have to kiss ass to get anything out there, right? So when they're shut down because they don't want to kiss ass, they learn how to do playwrights and things like that. And that's where we get all these sci-fi movies from. They are able to get their message out that way. And another thing is our own, like Murray said, our own intuition. It is coming in. We're tapped into that information, and it's flowing all around us, and we have to get it out there.
Yep. I agree. No, I completely agree. Penny, absolutely. You're on the mark. You and Maury both.
I agree with, I want to say this too, Danny, on Penny. I agree with that 100%. Fiction, fantasy fiction is the way that they've been doing it. And then and you notice most of us, or many of us at least, what were we doing in our 20s and 30s and 40s? We were reading fucking science fiction.
Science fiction.
And we know, Asimov and all of them from there on up.
Yes, but here comes also the kicker, Maury. This is like a feedback loop, right? Like, there are people that have nothing to do with all the deep dark shit or so, that write stories or fiction upon other fiction they read when they were younger and invent different ideas. You know what I mean? Like, different ideas how to handle things and create unknowingly new stuff, while that stuff gets picked up again by the deep dark black ops guys, and like the idea tried to get into something they can actually use.
No,
Bossy, I see what you're saying. No, and that is definitely a piece that has to go on the table, right? But the piece is, one of the most important parts of this is, and I talk about this all the time. So, like I said, I think last week we talked about this because I'm reading Isaac Asimov's Foundation series again. And I'm literally every bit, there's the thud moments all the way through this book. But when you realize that Asimov, Frederick Pohl, Robert Heinlein,
J.J. Abrams.
well, no, but these 3 guys, like, these guys were all working on the same project in Philadelphia during World War II. And in 1942, Asimov wrote the very first Foundations book. And you realize, like, these guys were, at the time, they were doing stuff. They were involved in we can formulate It doesn't take much of a stretch of an imagination from reading their biographies. These guys were involved in some fucking shit because they were forward thinking. Now, again, is it the black ops guys, the guys who sit there and go, these guys are the creators? We want to pull these kind of minds in because they can think outside the box? And so they do bring these type of people in to think outside the box to help them formulate other pieces. But we also know at the same time that we had we had spacecraft, we had the Vril Society, we had all the shit with the Nazis and all the occult stuff that they were doing. All of this shit took place in like a 10-year time period. And you can't tell me that it is disconnected. You can't tell me that Asimov and Heinlein and all of this kind of stuff were writing purely fiction. Because now the stuff that they're talking about is actually coming to fruition. Shit that they wrote in the 40s and the 50s is actually happening now. Like I said, the announcement of they're talking about building this elevator to the moon. Robert Heinlein wrote about the beanstalk, the lunar beanstalk, in the 50s. Before they'd even gone to the moon. Yeah,
Danny, when did they come up with digital currency? Like, when did it actually change? Was it in the 40s or the 60s?
What do you mean by, you define what you mean by digital currency? Because,
well,
for me, like, when you say digital currency, I think crypto, and I know that's not what you mean.
No, like when the Fed had the ability to do fractional reserve banking through computers, when did that start? That's
a good question. That really, I believe that really started in the 70s. And that's when you start, so for example, the states being pulled off the gold standard. What was it Nixon brought? That was at 73 that Nixon signed off on the gold thing in the States. And that was Federal Reserve driven. We know that for a fact. That same, in that early mid-70s, the same thing when Pierre Elliott Trudeau in Canada gave away Canada's central bank to the Federal Reserve. And so, like, that all started.
Was there any fuckery going on in the 40s? Like it just seems like there's something we're missing, because
there were fuckery going on.
There's a huge amount of fuckery going on.
Well,
but it was going on paper.
Well, right, but a second.
I'm just thinking, like, in the 40s, it just seems like an awful lot of shit happened. Like, it was crucial. 40s were crucial.
So I'm going to try and lay this out, because this is a whole thought process I went through yesterday when I was, again, thinking about that video that came from 2014. There was a remote viewing stuff, talking about time loops, etc. And one of the big changes that we saw, all sorts of changes that happened, is in the 40s during World War II. That's a lot of the Mandela effect stuff that we saw them in 2015 and 16 change, right? There was a Russian article, and I had Igor try and track it down. We've talked about this a couple of years ago, where they had a group of Russian scientists did some studies and said, basically, and the translation is really tough when you're Google translating Russian. Okay, right? Google Translate doesn't do well with Russian. But basically, what they're saying is, from what they can see, they could only track back their reality to 1952. That's as far back as they could go. Now, we, at the time, were like going, oh, are they talking again about a computer reality, as in, like, that's a new either A, that it's a timeline, and that timeline began in 1952, and these scientists were able to backtrack and go, that's where this beginning of this reality started in 1952 or 53, I can't remember. Or computer systems. Now, like I said, there was someone I used to know, who I'm no longer friends with, whose father was KGB, and very, very high up KGB. And she told me the story back in 2014 of her father was very old when she was born, that occasionally he would talk. And her father was the communications officer that arranged the calls between Stalin and Hitler. And he was there for all those calls. And he used to say to her statements like, this technology you have now, you think it's so advanced? We had technology back then that was so advanced from what you have now, you wouldn't even believe it. Okay? This didn't come from, this was a side conversation. This was an aside. We're talking about technology. We can hypothesize that they were using technologies back in the 40s. You just have to listen to your guys like Dan Burrich, like these type of whistleblowers who come out talking about the science of what they reverse engineered from these spaceships, etc. But you have to add on top of that, besides, because we get very easily distracted by the whole Area 51 thing, right? Thinking spaceship, spaceship, spaceship. But you have to remember that the Nazis and the Russians were heavily, heavily into the occult. Now remember, Campbell's laws. Any technology far advanced enough is indecipherable from magic. So they may have considered it occult, magical, occult type stuff. Or was it they were dealing with really, really fucking advanced technology? This has all happened in the 30s and the 40s as well. So when we put these pieces together, like, yeah, there's something about the Second World War. The First World War was the lead up. The First World War, and we did a project, oh God, I think it was Ben and I and a couple other people, and we started going through, you can go like on Wikipedia, and there's a lot of different sites besides Wikipedia that you can go, they do that like on this date. So say October 2nd, historical things that happened on October 2nd, and you can go and it'll be like October 2nd, 1029, so-and-so invaded so-and-so, and we started combing through these dates and events. And when you go through the lead up to World War I, you see the lead up. You actually sit there. It is astounding when you look at how many people were killed, how many of the royalty were assassinated, how many governments were knocked down, the revolts that happened, etc. Because that was the lead up for World War I, and through World War I, and then after World War I, which was the lead up to World War II. World War II, the more and more I look at it, was a fucking ruse. It was a ruse. A ruse in the fact there was something much bigger going on. Much, much deeper. It wasn't just about millions of men crawling through trenches and shooting each other and bayoneting there was much, it wasn't just about banking, because everyone likes to twist it that way and be like, oh no, it's just about the banking, you get the whole, the Bushes and the Rothschilds funded both sides of the war, and that is the distraction. World War II was about something else. Now, if we can kind of follow that through and say, with all the shit that we've talked about, all the information that came out pre-2012 about Looking Glass, about the Yellow Cube, etc., that they had the ability to go back and forth and actually change events, set things in motion, it's not beyond the realms of possibility. And then we have, like I say, Russian scientists saying 1952, 1953 was the farthest back they could go on that reality. That piece of reality, they couldn't track it back any farther than 1952 or 53.
Like a bottleneck, right?
It was like a bottle, like they went back, whatever the science was that they were doing, and it was scientists. It wasn't historians, it wasn't philosophers, it wasn't media, it wasn't politicians, it was scientists. So whatever tests they were running, they could not go any, that was the end. Like that was the big, they could not go anything farther back than that 1952 date. And they give a specific date too. I can't remember what the date was. We did discuss this on a show, I think back in 2017. So we should have the bookmark somewhere. I will try and dig it up. It was a specific date. It was like October 31st or April 22nd, 1952. That was the date. They went boom. They could not go any farther back than that. So when we look at these things, we have all these guys who are whistleblowers coming out talking about these various agencies, talking about alien tech, talking about things like the information that we've managed to glean together about the Vril Society, about the Thule Society, the Hitler and the Nazis and what they were doing. Plus you have Stalin and the Bolsheviks, and you have all of that crap that was going on. Plus you have all the secretive stuff that was already going on under the American government. And the British government, lest we forget the fucking British government and all the shit they were doing. And the Vatican. And the Zionists. Like literally everything was going on at that time. There's pieces there. There are absolutely fucking pieces there. And so that's why when we look at that first video that I showed you, the 15-minute video talking about how they could upload our consciousness, if their technology, like I said, if this KGB guy talks about they had technology back in the 40s that makes ours now look old and clunky and archaic, they would have the technology to be able to do that.
Denny, let me just throw in, basically the idea that they had back then was archaic. And I think that World War I and World War II were basically nothing else but gene editing. You know what I mean? They didn't have the technology to do that, so they sacrificed the healthy and well at the fronts, right? And to get to the idea of clones or projecting the consciousness, I doubt that you ever could project your consciousness in another body or anything. But there is a thing.
Yeah, you can.
Hang on.
I'm sorry, I disagree. But go ahead. You go ahead, bossy. Go ahead.
The idea that people have, like, oh my God, I'm going to create a new clone for something else to do, or that clone is like me, that is... I can't imagine. You're a soul, you're bound to your body, that is something else. But there is the ability, if you create a clone that has an implant that is almost at light speed, information exchange, you could use it as an avatar, as in a video game. Like you're projecting your conscious in it for a second to drive it. It doesn't matter if it gets killed or whatever. The moment it gets disconnected, you're back in your own mind, right?
Yep, but here's the thing. So that video that I talked about from 2014, they get into that. And they talk about these attacks that are happening in the etheric realm are taking people's consciousness out in the etheric realm, which kills the body or the avatar in the physical realm. It's another little piece to that. Now, Osat, she has had quite a few videos that she's put out. She did back in early September, around the 10th, where she saw very clearly, like she saw a whole pile of stuff where it looked like they were trying to come in. They were trying to put consciousness into people, other consciousness, taking, like, basically overwhelming the idea of a walk-in, but not friendly, not with consent, as in they were trying to basically using things like drugs and rave parties and things like that, and using that as an ability. You get people that are that drugged up that then you could then walk consciousness into that avatar and ride along with it. Yeah, Maury.
I got a question for you, Danny, and maybe you can answer it or help me work it through. I remember that when that subject came up in 17, where you were talking about the going back to 1950, I thought it was 53, because I remember 1953 really, really well, due to some things that happened around me when I was there. And by that time, I was 11 years old. And I remember prior to that, I remember when Truman defeated Dewey. That's another one. I fucking remember that. But that was prior. And I had a hard time to say, accepting it back then, but I listened to the argumentation. But we've had a similar conversation lately about 2012, you know, being a reset. And everybody in this room was around in 2012.
Yep.
And they were also around in 2011 prior to that. And we went through that. And I still, you know, I'm having a hard time just swallowing it. And yet I'm not rejecting
Absolutely. No, Maury, I totally hear you. I totally hear you, because there's a part that sits there that says, that's impossible, I would know. There's a part that says, that's impossible, I would know. Oh, I remember it like this. I can remember where I was on this date, and I did this. But the more I've looked at it, though, the more I've looked at it, I've sat there saying, but kind of what the idea of, like, whether you're talking about clones or moving consciousness into another reality, if you're, regardless of how we describe this, how would we know? And especially if it was a mass thing, like it wasn't just you, all of us. Like, we've had experiences, we've had unfuckers who've talked about, I know I died on this date, on this year, and then suddenly I was back in my car again, and I didn't have the accident. And they have this overall feeling of, like, I'm pretty sure on some timeline I died in that car accident, and now I'm back here, and they've jumped.
Yeah, that was a version of the whole Mandela effect, isn't it?
Exactly.
Remember how you and I used to go back and forth about how many people were in Kennedy's car?
Yeah, exactly.
In fact,
you know how, I don't want to go over that one again, but you remember a certain way, and I remember the opposite. And
exactly.
That was big time for both of us.
Yeah.
Especially for me, I was in college at the time. I wasn't some.
You weren't.
I mean, I wasn't some little kid that couldn't put two and two together at that time.
Yep.
You know.
You know,
but that's the thing. But both memories are real. That's the whole. This is the thing that I stump on. And even unfuckers do it, where I've seen people in the room where they go, "Well, I remember it like this," and I'm like, I get that we're not saying that you're wrong because you remember it like this. We're just saying that in our reality, it wasn't like this. And there are some people who still cannot
get past that fact.
They can't. So it's not that Maury's wrong or that I'm wrong. We're both right.
Yeah.
It's two
and
different
I don't know
timelines.
how to resolve that internally. I just don't. I can say it is, but it doesn't answer the question. It just acknowledges.
The fun thought experiment is that you can't even prove that a different version of you dies every time you go to sleep. You know what I mean? Like, you can't prove that it's a completely different version of you every time you wake up. Like, just because you feel like you've had all the memories of waking up, like it's actually a funny thought. It's actually like a fun thought experiment. Think about, like.
Yep. Well, it's kind of like computer systems when you upgrade your computer game,
right?
Like all your previous experience, all your previous files
gonna be in there.
are all there. All the memory has not changed. So, like, if I do an upgrade and my Windows, upgrades to a new security level or whatever, everything that I did previously on this computer is still there. The memory is still there.
Well,
but
and
it's changed.
That's why, like, one of the tricks to wake yourself up from the dream is to remember, okay, how did I get here? Like, because a lot of times in dreams, you just appear somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. There's no lead into it.
And that sort of allows for a fail-safe, if you think this is what's happened because I remember it that way.
Yep.
I think you were spot on in your analogy. That was, hey Benny. I think that was spot on because when change happens, and we've all experienced some sort of change, guys.
Yep.
We cannot deny that. I mean, this what the fuck just happened type that. And okay, so it changes, right? And then reality comes and settles in to all the cracks and crevices, and it just becomes that flow once again.
Yep.
So we then
seamlessly.
go, okay, yeah, exactly.
Well, this is an interesting analogy. This just popped into my head now. So try this. Because Zero, you talked about J.J. Abrams. You brought him up. We're going to go there. Fringe and Westworld, J.J. Abrams. In Westworld, Maury, did you watch Westworld, the series? I don't know if Maury watched it or not. No, you didn't. Okay. So if you watch Westworld, so you've got season 1 is 10 episodes, I think. Season 2 was 10 episodes. So like it's not like Fringe where it's like 22 episodes a season. In the first season, you have all these scenes that take place between all the characters, the real life characters and the clone, automaton, avatar characters, right? And you kind of build a storyline in your head, a linear storyline in your head, as this is how this show is playing out. Here is the storyline and how it plays out. When you get into the second season, you start realizing that some of the scenes that you saw in the first season were not in linear time. They actually took place like 20 years earlier, 30, maybe even 40 years earlier. And all of a sudden you're like, oh shit. But those automatons, those characters, the robots, for example, in Westworld, did they have a concept of linear time? No, they did not. When they were reset every night, they just started their storyline all over again. And it was Dolores, that was her name, right? Dolores starts having her memories coming through. And as they're coming through, though, they're still following a linear. And it gets to, you realize by the end of the second season, even she can't sort out her linear timeline, because the memories of each of the timelines are all bleeding in together. That at the one character, the man in black has to say to her, like, don't you remember this happened? And then realizing, and you as the viewer realizing that actually took place 30, 40 years earlier, not 6 months ago, not. So when you look at it from that way, like, it was, Abrams presented something that kind of showed that, number one, timelines are highly variable, and this idea of the concept of the consciousness being programmed to go back and forth between timelines. It's another piece. That's another piece to that you have to look at and go like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I love that you look at everything.
You mentioned that, Danny.
Sorry, Maury, say.
Yeah, look, I'll be quick, and then go ahead, Zero, after I get done if you want, please. On that Westworld thing, I remember everybody was recommending it and talking about it, and for some weird reason, I never did it. And then Dawn got on my ass about it, and you know I listen to her pretty close, although I don't hear everything she says, as she reminds me a lot. Anyway, I still didn't do it, but I wrote it down this time. I think I need to watch Westworld this time, and I think I'll make a point to do that. So whatever you've said so far, I'm going to watch it now.
I need to rewatch it. It's so good.
Well, apparently season 3 should be coming out in the next year, so I will have to do another whole complete rewatching, because I've seen season 1 about 3 times, but I've only seen season 2 once. So I'm definitely going to have to, because season 2 is a mindfuck. Really, really a mindfuck. And that's one of these things, like, anyone watching who hasn't seen Westworld, don't watch it unless you have a very strong stomach. It's an extremely violent show. It's like John Wick in a country and western. It's very, very violent, which is, I used to give the updates to Anne when the episodes were coming out and said, Anne, and this week this and this and this. I said, if only they could take Westworld and like do like little like 5-minute synopsis of each episode, but cut out all that gruesome violence and all that stuff, just so that people who don't want to watch that could actually carry on with the show, know what I'm talking about.
Hey, do you think that they'll end up pulling some shit like every single one of those beings in that place had DNA taken from an actual being, and there'll be some tie-in, and there'll be some tie-in with that. Like they've been gathering DNA to make those beings.
And this is what I'm saying. There's all these little pieces, and you go, okay, it could be creative, fanciful writing. Someone's really got, or we can sit back and go, we know cloning has been going. Dolly the sheep was that 30 years ago? Over 30 years ago was Dolly the sheep. Okay? If they cloned a sheep that long ago and publicly admitted that they cloned a sheep, publicly admitted that they'd done this, what do you think the likelihoods are that they have not already cloned humans, and probably a fuck of a long time before Dolly the sheep was made public?
So I'm saying, like, what if we see that connection in the third episode where, let's say, people been having nightmares, of these things happening, or thinking there's something wrong with them,
considering the 90s, starting next year is when you can say the 90s started 30 years ago. When I hear 30 years ago, I think like the 70s still. Yeah, 30 years. That's like, oh no, the 90s.
No, that's the 90s. It's scary. I already feel old. Stop. This is these things. When we look at all these pieces that we know they can do all this shit. And we have things like, what was that? Altered carbon? Was that the show? Altered, well, they're talking about basically transferring consciousness, and all it was a gadget that just went, and they could put your consciousness into any body. Those guys who'd served life sentences, and they just took their consciousness out of the prison when it was over, and they basically got whatever body was available. Here, you get a 12-year-old girl. Here, you get an 80-year-old man.
Punishment? But what kind of punishment is that? If you punish someone to take him out of time, he can't experience shit, and the next moment you put him, 200 years later as a body.
Bossy, you're not going to get an argument from me. It sounds stupid if you ask me. I'm just saying, it was the premise of a show.
I say real quick, D, too, it's like Altered Carbon. Yeah, I ended up watching all those again. I watched them twice. Yeah. So
I haven't finished watching that. I only got into about halfway through, and then I got sidetracked on something else. I need to go back and finish watching that.
It's worth it. Yeah, Altered Carbon. I can even remember, I think it was Blair said something about it being a masterpiece, because it's like I kept watching, like I watched 6 straight. I remember when I first started watching, I couldn't stop watching the show. It's like kind of addicting. It was
it's like a train wreck. You can't take your eyes off it.
You know what? It's almost like a hall of mirrors.
One thing you were saying earlier about like that I was really kind of appreciated was like your ability to see like the big picture perspective, because like seeing all these different things happening in all these different little areas, allows you to like really kind of see the big picture perspective and everything, which I think is important to not get caught up in all the little different pieces, because you can explore those rabbit holes forever.
You can.
But it's about connecting those dots and also for some reason when you were talking about World War II and like suppressing technology, the thought came to my mind like the only reason any of us know about the atomic bomb was because they actually released a few.
They used it.
They actually, like that's the only reason any of us know about it. Like, is because they used it several times. Like, but if they didn't, we would not know about it, and like, and if you were to talk about that sort of,
Zero, that's really fucking true. And that's a perspective that I think a lot of people miss. That's exactly it. If you look at that high-tech weapon for the times in World War II, they didn't announce. I pretty much can guarantee that they did not go out and announce to everyone, hey, we've split the atom, we made an atomic bomb. No, they just dropped the fucker.
Yeah.
That's it. And then explained afterwards what they'd done. So even that piece of technology, you guarantee, I think you're right on the money there, Zero. Like that's there was nothing else happening. I just realized I don't have the chat open. Fuck. Sorry guys, if you guys were talking to me in chat, I just realized I didn't have the chat open.
That whole thing was like a grand sacrifice to the blood gods. And they opened up dimension. They fucked up a bunch of shit. I'm just telling you right now.
There's so much stuff that has happened during that time period specifically, that's when you got to, same thing, you bring in Admiral Byrd stuff with Antarctica. That's got to be put in, that's got to be, when you talk about that time period, you have to put that stuff on the fucking table and go, and we have this. Talk about super fast travel from pole to pole and et cetera, and flying vehicles that could travel from one pole to the other without stopping at super high speed. Well, we're talking about technology. We're talking about all these kind of hidden pieces.
It is funny to reframe it in the other, from the other point of view, like, oh, they couldn't hide such amazing technology. They did. It's called the atomic bomb, and the only reason it remained not hidden was because they used it. Like,
well, that's
the whole thing. It's already been done.
We think that it's about humans, right? Oh, World War II was about humans and everything. No, what if it wasn't? What if it was about, the war was over technology? Remember all the art, all the historic piece relics and things like that went missing.
Yep, and every war, all that shit goes missing. Every time they invade a country, the first thing that disappears are all the relics.
It was huge in World War II. Mm-hmm. And look at all the experiments they were doing and how, USA for sure had to go in and capture them, right? Capture the scientists. That's the story we're told.
Oh, yeah.
But no, they went in and tried to gut all of that. They wanted it, but Germany hid a lot of it. So I think it again really
Antarctica,
was,
right? Like the whole Antarctica and Argentina shit, and the Falkland Islands. Oh, let's throw that a little more modern history. The Falkland Islands. Well, we know it for a fact. It was not about some little war between Britain and Argentina over the ownership of an island that's a fucking piece of rock that no one wants. No.
Well, I think we need to start looking at, or we should start looking at, these countries that everybody wants to invade. I know we keep going oil or money or blah, blah, blah. What is the technology or what are the artifacts?
Absolutely. I've always said.
Country.
Yep.
Yeah. Because I think it's just a
don't the oil is another distraction. That's kind of like you go to the people fall down.
Hang on, guys.
They accept mainstream and then they go, okay, like U.S. invaded Iraq. Oh, well, it was all about oil. And people get caught at that. Oh, that's the deep conspiracy. It's all about the oil. And they go down another step. Oh no, it's about the central bank. And they go, oh, it's about the gold. No, guys, keep going. Like you gotta go way deeper than fucking that shit.
That is the stuff that is not talked about at all. The technology and the artifacts. They're
also
not.
The stuff that is hidden in it. Penny, you just reminded me. I saw a while ago some guy who took like pictures like the Mona Lisa that was from Da Vinci, and there was another picture. I can't remember how it's called. The Baptist, John the Baptist.
John the Baptist,
and that guy took the pictures, turned them in black and white, and made all the color differences like show up on the black and white. Took the same image and made a mirror next to it, and through the mirror image you could see two different, for lack of a better term, I would call it entities, right? And they were shown two different entities in two different pictures. One looked like a fish guy and the other one looked like a reptile guy, just by mirroring the artwork of the past, right? Like if you want to get something along the timelines, what better way of hiding it in the art while some people can see it, right?
Right, and Da Vinci is a perfect example of that because he's another guy who we know was involved in secret societies. We know, or let's just say, we can hypothesize looking at all the shit. Again, the guy designed a fucking helicopter. When? Okay, like you have to have above and beyond information coming in to be able to do these things. Hold on, I want to cross back. Someone just said something in the chat. And Gorf, I'm totally with you. I do not believe the bullshit about the nuclear bomb stuff either. I do think there's a big part of it that is a fucking bullshit lie that was used as a scare tactic. Because yes, Nagasaki is beautiful. And according to all the shit that we got told in the 70s and 80s, going to school, when they were like, oh, a nuclear bomb will destroy everything. Nothing will be alive for 2,000 years except the cockroaches. Okay, Nagasaki is a beautiful, beautiful city. It can't, and it did not just come back this year or last year or the last decade or two decades before that. Like by the 60s, it really was a thriving community again. So there's a lot of that shit about nuclear that is, yeah, and Linda, exactly. Chernobyl is another one. Thriving with Life too. Isn't it funny how they had to come up with the Chernobyl TV show to try and counteract all the hype of everyone's coming out for the last 10 years going, but Chernobyl is like fine. Look at like it like there's the deer are running around, don't have two heads. And there aren't rats with 6 feet. And you know what I mean? Like, so all of these things, but they lie to us about all these pieces. Like we know that it's all a big deception. But the nuclear question, and this is the one question I have, is because we don't understand dimensions. They, as in i.e. the fucking scientists, certainly don't fucking understand them. Or at least on the whole, I'm sure there are those scientists who are deep in those dark black groups that do, but for the most part, they don't. So who's to say, like John said, like did these nuclear tests, did they blow open fucking holes between universes? If you think about kind of like watching Fringe, what did he do? What did Walter do? He created this thing that blew open a portal. Now, when that portal closed, okay, Nina loses her arm. David Robert Jones gets cut in half in the one episode in the second, third episode season, second episode season. Just poof, it obliterates them. We don't know because we just don't have the science available to us to know, but we can look at the, what's the word I want to use? The physical evidence. We can look at physical evidence and we gather the clues up and we sit there and go, okay, well, here's this piece on the table and this piece and this piece and this piece and this piece. And that's why, when, like I say, when I start looking at some of the stuff, like that whole thing about the computer simulation, uploading our consciousness into a computer, I do not doubt that it is possible. And I honestly, there's more and more evidence. When I look at it, I go, it could very well be there. And the virus that we talk about.
And it's quantum computing. I mean, come on. Like, and if you think of how even just in our limited point of view, how much technology has like evolved within the last 10 years even, like.
Fred is visiting her son. That's if you want to know where Fred is. Fred's visiting her son right now. In our limited understanding of this information, exactly. We put the pieces on the table. And some of those pieces are uncomfortable to look at. And I think that is where you fall down over some of the pieces because it is uncomfortable. You don't want to think about, for example, the whole concept of like that you are just ones and zeros in a computer program. We don't want to think. It's an uncomfortable, it's a terrible feeling, but you can't take it off the table. We can't allow our personal beliefs or our personal fears to prevent us from looking at all the evidence that might be in front of us. Does that make sense?
Hey, Danny, we're already uploading our consciousness. We are already doing it, guys.
Yep.
So, you know, we keep thinking, watching this science fiction stuff going, oh, that's so in the future, that's in the future. No, it's already here, guys.
It's
We're
already here.
doing it. Every time you text, every time you write something on your wall, post something, you are uploading your consciousness into the matrix, the AI, the algorithms, no matter
Thank you,
what
Penny.
you want to call it.
Okay,
We're
thank you.
already there.
You just triggered me to remember what it was that I was going to say before. Is we talk about the Matrix. And we talk about, we've said it over and over again, the Matrix is falling apart. The Matrix is falling apart. How much more so does that feel correct, if you will, when we look at all this given information that we're looking at? I'd say the idea of a computer program falling apart. The idea of the reality around us literally falling apart. There's shit that's going on right now that is so fucking crazy that you have to look outside a box. You can't try and put it in a box. You can't try and even define it at points because it defies definition, because we don't have the parameters to be able to draw a conclusive answer. Right? Like, we don't have the answers. We don't have all the pieces. We're working on a 1,000 piece puzzle, and I think we maybe only have about 400 pieces of that puzzle.
And we don't even have the language to express what we need to
Exactly.
in the first place.
Exactly. And isn't that a wonderful tool to keep us all in confusion when we can't even define the words that we're trying to speak to each other and make sure that we each understand each other, but we're using a flawed language that fucking defies when you talk outside of the 3D. Who, what, where, why, when, how? Yeah, we can do that. Anything above and beyond that? Yeah, very difficult to actually verbalize.
Isn't it funny how we're going back to symbolism?
Emojis?
Yeah.
I was going to jump in here real quick. You mentioned about that breaking down. Remember the Star Trek Voyager episode where Michael McKean plays the evil clown, and then Belana. It's called the Thaw. Called the Thaw. One called the Thaw. The Voyager. And it's like there's several people like Voyager crew discovers on this planet, this world where some people are in like stasis, artificially in like a virtual reality, and they have to find out, like one of them mentioned, well, we need to find out what's going on, where they're at. We need to get, and then they find out that they end up in that manufactured through fear, false.
A false reality.
Yeah, and then Belana tries to tear it down piece by piece, the surroundings, and it shows how it breaks down. Instead of trying to rescue them from him, try to tear down the surroundings, the false reality. That's what you were just saying. I said, remember that.
Okay, so the false reality. So the next thing, and we got off on everything else. I wanted to get to this earlier. Gorf brought it up just before we went live. I had a huge conversation with Jenny about this over coffee today. And we touched on it on the last show. And that is, I'm going to use the dreaded word that I hate, manifesting. Yeah, don't say it. Oh my God, the New Agers are going to come out and try and like rub us with crystals and shit. Right now, I'm going to speak from my own personal experience, and a lot of the people that I'm talking to, and I'm sure all of you guys can chime in on this. I talked about this after Fringe, or before Fringe, Sunday, I talked about it. I know right now my intuition is dialed up to 11. Literally, I can't, to the point of even Nick has been like, holy crap. I know. You just know, like the thought pops into your head, the oven's gone out again. And you go and you go, oh, look, the oven's gone out again. Never been wrong yet. Something happened. Anything that's going my intuition is literally dialed up to extreme high levels. And I'm training myself at the moment to take note of those thoughts and take note of those messages when they're coming in, because a lot of times when you're busy, thoughts come in, you don't pay attention because you're in the middle of having a conversation with someone else, you're in the middle of typing out something on the computer, cooking, whatever you're doing, and sometimes we miss these little pieces that are coming in. But everyone I've been speaking to has talked about the fact of it is like our intuition is really dialed up. And on the flip side of that, or on the same side of it, depending on how you want to look at it, is the ability to manifest things is also like way over the top, like crazy, crazy accurate, being able, and I've been joking about it for the last few months, talking about things like I manifesting the little things like I need, looking for buttons, or you need a specific piece of fabric that I need for a project that I'm doing, and literally set the intent, like, okay, that's what I want, that's what I need, walk into my favorite little secondhand shop, and oh, look, there's the fabric that I need right there. How much? 50 cents. Awesome. You know, it's gotten crazy, 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 crazy. And I put a post about it in the Unfuckers group. We were all talking about it. And Amina made a really good thing. She said, talked about the fact of like focusing our intent on what we want. And there's Jenny and I had a huge conversation about it today over coffee. And it was like, it is so, we can get so caught up in the details, it can be very difficult to think about what we want. Well, what do you want? Well, what do I want right now? Well, I need a house to live in. Okay, but in the greater scheme of things, what do you want? Okay, well, I want a house to live in that has a garden. Okay, but beyond that, what do you want? Well, okay, well, I want a house in a garden, but I want it to be like out in the countryside where there's lots of trees. Because it's very, very hard beyond our personal sphere, our personal reality that we're in at the moment. We can all say what we need at the moment. We can all say what we want in this moment. But on the greater scheme of things, it's difficult because, like I said, the options aren't on the table. As no one has given us a checklist to say, here's your options. Pick A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, right up to double Z. We don't have that. So when we don't know what choices can be made, does that make sense? It becomes very difficult to focus on exactly what you want, because how can you know what's available? And the example I gave in the Unfuckers group was the fact, if I said, for me, if we talk about on the greater scheme of things, like globally, the greater scheme of things, I don't want money to be around anymore. I want money to go away completely and utterly. I don't want to use money. I don't want to have anything to do with money. I want it to just like poof. Yet for a lot of people, that terrifies them. The very thought of not having a financial currency exchange system literally petrifies them. They can't imagine it. They can't even remotely comprehend what that would look like. So therefore, they're afraid of it. And we also know what we don't want, right? Like, it's really, really easy. I'm pretty sure the Unfuckers could sit down and write a very eloquent list of what the fuck we don't want anymore. Starting with taxation and vaccines and going from there. Somewhere in the middle, though, there has to be a place where we can set our intent. And Ann and I've talked about this fucking, I don't know how many times in the last few years. We know what we want. as far as ourselves. On the personal level, maybe that's what we have to start working at. Do we have to start working on that personal level? As in, by defining what we want on our personal level, we can, by default, set the intent on the greater level. So, for example, if I say, I want a place to live with my family where we can grow our own food and we can have trees, and the weather's going to be relatively decent, and it's, you know, we're going to have a place where my children are going to be happy, where they're going to be safe, where we can do the things we want to do, where I can make the products that I want to make, where I can build a community with the friends that I want to be with, who can work together on projects that we enjoy. We define that in our personal space in that way.
I would say define it until you can hold on to that feeling, as if it's like.
Oh, absolutely. But what I'm saying is, can we, by setting our personal, set a default at the greater scale, i.e., certain things have to be set in place for you to be able to do those things, right? Place where you can live, where you're not worrying about visas, passports, et cetera, et cetera. Well, then by definition, that removes the system of control that is causing us to be continuously fucked over by these borders and passports and police, et cetera, et cetera. So
can I offer something, Danny, on that?
Yeah, Maury, please jump in.
Okay, what you're talking about, I'm sitting here thinking on my own life, okay? And I suspect, I suspect others are doing versions of this, but I don't know it. I only know what I'm doing for sure. But what I've found, especially over the last 3 years, it's been really noticeable to me, and it hasn't stopped. I'm making decisions differently than I ever have before, which were according to the program plan. I knew how to be smart in the world, the ways of the world. But I'm making decisions now that I never would have before. And the funny thing is, it isn't funny, but the odd thing about it is, they're working.
Yep.
But they don't go according to the pre-programmed plan. And I mean, that's what I'm experiencing in this life personally. And
exactly.
I don't think I'm the only one that's doing that. Nope. But I haven't heard people say it, so I'm saying it out loud.
And kind of leaving room for the universe to move on your behalf.
That's another way of saying it. And that's exactly what I guess I'm pointing at, Jane.
And this is like the whole thing. So like this week on Sunday, we're watching Fringe. I was talking all about Italy because I discovered that article talking about how Italy, this one province in Italy, is going to pay you 700 euros to move your family there and live there and start a business, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it really excited me. I spent all day Saturday researching that province of Italy, like literally researching everything about it, the climate, the geography, the geology, I mean, you name it, everything. Looking at houses for sale, looking at properties for sale, the whole bit. And then going, okay, because it's everything, all the properties that we saw for sale was everything we're looking for. My family, again, my personal circle. Property with lots of land, with forests, with fruit trees, I mean, literally everything. Is it ideal? No, it's not. Why? Because I don't speak Italian. And you always come back to that big fucking border thing and residencies and passports and all of that shit. So saying, like, it comes down to, for example, I keep falling back to the whole thing about England. I really, really feel like I really want to move to England. And I know everyone in England's going, you don't want to fucking come here. Seriously, you don't. I get it. But as a place to move with my family, that would be a place where we could go, where my kids speak English. They can interact with all the other people. There's not going to be a language barrier. I can legally live there. So it's like that takes one piece out of the puzzle away. Like, don't have to worry about the residencies, etc., because I can legally live there. I just got sidetracked. Sorry, guys. Oh, so no, it's not perfect, but and it gives me a place where I can sit there and go, okay, but that works for my family for the now, England is a very viable option. So I said, okay, well, the problem again is I keep joking about this for months now, is the whole thing like we need a new house to live in, like we seriously have to move. And every time I keep thinking about, oh, money, I need to find a property that is in the price that we can afford, then you sit there and you've limited yourself, right? You've limited yourself right there. And I sat there and said, okay, so like, I'm going to put it out into the universe and say, looking for a property, a small acreage, small farm property in England, and put it out there and be like, there's got to be properties out there. There's got to be a shitload of properties, just like everywhere else in Europe, where grandma and grandpa are no longer, they either passed away or they're in nursing homes. The family are all working in London. They're working in Manchester. There's this, a family home or something that's on the land somewhere that no one is there. It's not being used. There has to be one out there. So I put it out to the universe. That's my thing. I'm going to put that out to the universe and be like, we need a piece of land somewhere in the United Kingdom to be able to go and grow food, raise children and chickens.
Yeah, and by you taking the initiative to be looking, that's kind of setting things in action.
Yeah. But and just even that, just speaking it out. Like, so for example, like I said, speaking out, because I don't know who's watching this video tomorrow, the next day, next week. Someone could watch this video and be like, oh, my aunt and uncle have a piece of property they haven't lived on in 10 years over here. And it's just sitting there empty. So I don't know, maybe they'd be okay. Well, let me.
And also, you're just putting energy behind your intention. I feel
exactly,
which gets it flowing. Like an intention without energy behind it is sort of like a car without gas in it. Like,
right.
It's
yep.
just
On both of your points, Zero and Danny, I want to interject the possibility that didn't just occur in your brain, but actually it came through you to you, and you said yes to the possibility, and now you're starting to focus.
And
you didn't have that thought 2 weeks ago. You were looking at Italy or somewhere like that.
And that's what I say about intuition, right?
That's
training
exactly
yourself to listen to the intuition, the messages that come in. Because sometimes we miss those messages. Sometimes
but you didn't
don't
miss
get
this one, and I'm suggesting that's where it came from. And then you just said, with your mind, yes, and that's all it really takes. And then it becomes a flow, as opposed to a mental, false lead, which we all have been down many of those, so we kind of know how they go.
Yep.
Well, you gotta throw some irons in the fire, right?
Yep.
You get those irons in that fire and stir things up.
Exactly. It's like the joke. I've been joking with Ann again for ages. Ann has been working off her ass for like the last week, losing her mind. I keep joking, saying, if I was there, I could sit down and fucking label bottles for you till the day the cows come home, because I'm really good and I'm fast at labeling. It's just one of those things that I'm really good at. And we keep joking, Ann and I, about needing to set up like a cooperative where we kind of like you have one for all of us who do the work that like Ann and I do, where you kind of all have one set place, like a lab area type thing, and you have all the filling equipment and the labels and everything, and then you can work together as a community and be like, I've got a big order going out, Ann could come and help me and whoever else is there, and you get everything bottled and labeled and ready and packaged to ship. Oh, now Ann's got a big order coming. Okay, so we all work on Ann's. I can see it. Do you know what I mean? Like when you can see it, I can feel it. I can feel this. Like I said, I had a flash a few weeks. It was about 3-4 weeks ago. I had a flash of like a market, like farmer's market type place, and having a stall. And on the stall, there was like my products. There was Ann's products. There was some of like Gail's stuff, that her groovy Halloween decoration type shit that she's doing, and there was someone else that like jams that they were doing, and we just made like a community stall where we were selling everyone, all of us just sitting there talking and laughing and just, do you know what I mean? Like the whole picture drops in as a whole, and it's not just the visual, it's the emotional too that came with it. Boom. So it's like, okay, well, that picture dropped in, therefore it has to be something we can do. It has to be something that is achievable. Thank you. Achievable. It has to be an achievable piece when it drops in perfectly like that, and you can see it. Gail's get in. Let's do it. Yeah, Gail, come on. Come on. Working, yeah, and just said working in groups lightens the loads and lots of levels, and it's not just physical. Absolutely. There's nothing that's more like if you're sitting there and you're doing sewing and you sit with a bunch of people who are sewing together and you've got little ideas and someone's really good at one thing and someone really sucks at another thing and you can kind of work around it. The creative flow of being able to do all kinds of projects because each person brings their own flair to whatever project it is you're working on.
Well,
I can see it. I can taste it. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's that real. There has to be a way of manifesting that. There has to be a way of doing it.
Well, you need to find the connection too.
Mm-hmm.
Because without that connection, I mean, it's just a thought and it is a vision. So you have to figure out that connection. Sometimes you have to find that connection because it's not just going to drop in your lap, even though you've made all of this. It's like a mood board, okay? When you make a mood board, okay, you can make that mood board all you want. You could cover your room with the mood board, but unless you connect, again, I'm not articulating this the best.
No, I know what you're saying. And that's been always my whole thing. Like, my example I've used since fucking 2012 about manifesting a fucking tomato. You can sit there on your ass, hold your hand up and go, I want a tomato. I want a tomato. I want a tomato. I want a tomato. Or you can say, I need some tomatoes. Walk outside, talk to your next door neighbor and find out that they've got a shitload of extra tomatoes. Oh, hey, I have a whole pile of extra tomatoes that came out right this week. Do you want some? Fucking awesome.
That is yeah.
And that is what you're saying about you set that intent, but then you have to actually.
What is
you
that?
You got to put energy behind the attention. Yes.
What is that series that was? Everybody was like, "Oh, you guys got to watch this. It's on Amazon Prime, and it's really about time, and she's taken out of time." No, not the island. She's and it's unsomething.
Unseen.
Yeah. Yes, where she has
undone. That's it. Undone.
Yes.
Everyone was real close.
Where she's taken out of time and reality. But the thing was he was saying to her, now make those. He puts keys on the counter and he says, make a move. And she's looking and she's concentrating, right? And she's trying to visualize these keys moving. And here this guy, her fiance walks in from a different timeline, right? Walks in, picks the keys up. Well, the keys just moved. Okay, yep. We seem to think that it has to be all about us, but when we let everybody else in, guess what? They can help make that connection.
Exactly. And
right.
Go ahead, Zero.
One thing I might also add is, when you say like, oh, I can see it, I can picture it, like I can like taste it, like it's so visceral, I can I can smell the air, and I know that it's almost like I can almost reach out for it, when it's that clear, and especially if you're big picture oriented, sometimes it's nice just to remind yourself, like, maybe the only thing you really need to do is just ask, what's the next step?
Yep. Yeah.
From here, where's the next piece? What's the next?
Yep. But, and I've said this before, sometimes we do limit ourselves. It's like I said about the idea of the house, where I realized a few weeks ago that I was limiting myself because I was saying, oh, we need a new house. I need to manifest us a new place to live. God knows I did it perfectly with this place. I can do it again. If I've done, not once, every time I've done it, I've always found the house. But I had myself in a loop of thinking, okay, it's 11:44 right now. I swear to God, these numbers things are driving me freaking nuts. where I didn't realize that took me a second time to realize that I was using the rent that we pay here as the limiter. Well, we can only afford this much, therefore we have to find another house that costs this much. And in doing that, you've limited yourself, because you've limited yourself to other options that could be out there without you even realizing it. And that's when I sat there and was like, oh, wow.
Especially when there are a lot of options that aren't so easily defined. I mean, like when you know what I mean? Like when it's not.
There's something else, Danny. What you're describing is a skill we all have perfected really, really well in our lives. We're really good at arguing for our limitations.
Yeah.
Isn't that
isn't it?
That's a catchphrase, I know, but all of us are really fucking good at arguing for our limitations. And the thing is, we're starting to realize we don't have to do that as much as we have. In fact, we might even not have to do it at all eventually. But we need to start combating that. It's a program that we accepted.
Yep.
Right from the get-go.
Yep.
And we didn't even know it.
Yep.
But we're starting to see, well, wait a minute, there might be another way. And what you're talking about is, I put that wording on it, but that's what I'm hearing you say, that you're breaking away from that arguing for your limitations.
And
that's something there.
I want to throw this out, because I do this, and I'm sure a lot of other people do too. When we think about the dreaded word manifesting, we think about things, for example, the small things. So like my tomato analogy, right? How many of us have been able to go, I really want to make spaghetti sauce? And literally with it, either you walk into a shop and find, for me, every single time I'm like, Nick says bolognese, I walk into our local grocery store and find like a 4-kilo bag of tomatoes on sale for €1. Every time, all the time, easily. Or someone, because, oh, look, we have tons of extra tomatoes, here you go. But then we tend to go, well, that's just tomatoes. That's easy. I manifest a piece of fabric. I needed white eyelet. I was looking for white eyelet. I really, really wanted white eyelet. And I walked into my little shop. The next week, there was a whole bedding set. Sheets, pillowcases, duvet cover, everything in white eyelet. I'm like, that's more white eyelet than I'll be able to use in years. It's perfect. And it cost me 50 cents. Actually didn't. I insisted that he actually take €3 for it, because he was only going to charge me 50 cents. So we limit it and we say, well, that's just a little thing, a house. Well, that's so much bigger. But is it? Right? That's a limitation of our mind. If we want to talk, whether you want to talk about either AI or the universe, or pick a fucking god from whatever pantheon you like, do they discern between the difference between white eyelet fabric and a house? Pretty sure it doesn't really, really fucking matter. And if you talk about the Matrix and you're putting literally programming the Matrix to give you what you want, does it really matter that it's a difference between white fabric and a house? No.
Well, that's what religion's for, to convince you that some other guy's giving it to you because you can't do it. So.
Well, and that's just it. Like, the same. Hold on, Don. Let me just finish this one thing. I'll let you go. Someone had to donate all that white eyelet bedding for it to appear in my little guy's shop. Not any other shop, but his shop, because that's where I always go. So it relied on someone else to donate, give away that bedding for me to find it at a price that I could afford. So a house is no different. If there's a house that's standing empty and someone says, hey, we have a property that's fucking empty and it might be perfect for you, is it any different? Is it? That's the limitations that I find that I'm realizing I set on myself, and it's so easy to manifest the little things like this, like literally every fucking day. But then when you think about the big stuff, you go, oh, but it's a big thing.
But what I'm trying to tell you is it's called a buildup of frequencies, and they're directional in nature. So in alchemy, we learn to spot those type of tracks, if you know what I mean. And you only
be a little better. I'm not sure I'm following you, so I want you to really Lay that out for me better, Dawn, if you can.
Okay, so we kind of, a lot of times, depending on what we're trying to manifest, there's certain ways the universe will do it. And so I call that like a buildup. So it will start small, and it keeps, because then you engage it. And then as you engage it, it moves you up. Sometimes these things happen and then they take off in a certain direction that puts you where you need to be. If that makes any sense at all.
Yeah. No. I get what you're saying. And that was my very next point I was going to make, was exactly that, of like, as practice, I'm putting this out to everyone, all the unfuckers, anyone who's listening to this video, right?
It's frequency based though. It's energetic based. That's what you go by, is that feeling.
That's the feeling.
You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But
so
we have to train ourselves to not limit ourselves either. And that's what I'm saying is like, I want everyone to practice now.
As you engage and you recognize like you're doing, it automatically moves you into the next level, and you're holding that space for the next one to come.
You have to actively look for that next level, right? Like you have to actively, you can't.
No, well, you wake up.
That's what I'm saying. Like we've got to sit there. And that's what I'm going to put out to everyone now. Is like, if you're manifesting tomatoes and white eyelet, step it up. Really start putting. And Gorf put out a brilliant example. I don't know, Gorf is still here. Of a situation where he talked to someone who's a complete unbeliever, and this person started literally manifesting his ass off, and not little things, like major life-changing events, and then being like, holy shit.
Danny, that's what that book is about. The one Nancy had us get, the physics of miracles, except he explains it very clearly where I understand it, because I don't understand science whatsoever. My book of science is hilarious, but that's what and about getting out of the way of yourself, because we set perimeters.
Yes.
And
getting out of the way of ourselves.
And when you do, then nothing works correctly, or it only works to this point, and you're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it takes the same amount of energy, guys.
Exactly.
If you're going to do a tomato, then do a goddamn house. Because you know what? Benny wants to say hi. Say hi, Ben. Say hi.
Hi, Benny.
Yeah.
Oh, now he's going to shut up, right?
There. You did a little one. But yeah, it's the same exact energy. And people sit there, and they want to pay hundreds of dollars into a system that helps them create mood boards and get what you want and blah, blah, blah. No, it's the same exact energy. Yep. So if you're manifesting this little itty bitty thing over here, guess what? You could manifest an entire city, guys. It just, the city takes more connections per se that you have to connect to than that little itty bitty thing. But if you're doing that little thing, you can do that huge thing.
And that's kind of what I want to say about all of us working together, and the fact of like, if we all start going back to what we were saying about working within our own personal sphere, I'm beginning to see, and I think my belief, that as we influence our personal sphere, that radiates out on a unconscious, if you will, level, because we are setting those limits. I.e., if you sit there and say, I am not going to deal with any more of this, for me, government residency bullshit anymore, I like, no. I'm going to manifest that that is just not part of our reality anymore, then I think that we can then radiate that out to the greater. Go ahead, boss.
Just bomb between this, since all the pasta talk and cooking tomato sauce or bolognese sauce, I told that only Brianna a few years ago. Every time I cook in my kitchen bolognese sauce and pasta, I sort of have I don't know how to describe it, a picture in my head where all the people that I get along with, the people that I love, and that is, I don't know, kind of moving me to tears, are there. It is like a scene, like a big mansion. We are all there. We are cooking all together, having huge tables outside in the yard. We are happy. It looks almost like the scene of Last Supper, but with a happy ending. Because, but hang on. This is once we have been through all this bullshit, once we have defeated it all, once we can be free, we will be sitting at some point all in the yard, laughing, drinking wine, drinking all fun stuff, having food. We all sitting together. We all celebrating that we have overcome it. Maybe we should just, like talking about manifestation, maybe think about one day in time when all the shit is behind us and we can all laugh and sit together and enjoy our freedom, right?
Yep, absolutely, Fossey.
Like
Absolutely. Like a big ass family sitting back, eating and laughing and just, I hear you.
I'd like to expand on that because I agree with what Bassie just said. It's possible that we're feeling that manifesting, but we don't have the language or the experience of what that's going to be. So we do it with our limited abilities. So like you're talking, Danny, you're picturing a set of circumstances, but it's still a limitation. And if you open up to whatever that means and then let it come and know that you'll recognize it in the moment when it arrives, maybe that's what, and if something comes in between now and then, it's a bonus from where you are, but it might not even be the ultimate, what you're looking for.
Yep. Because you don't know what it looks like.
No.
Like I said, like we don't know what it looks like. So therefore, maybe it's like Bossy said, you put that energy towards that big party at the end.
I think we're doing that without knowing it.
Although I do like to, although even though I know that like the details aren't necessarily like you're not focused on the details, like in terms of like it needs to be this way, but I do like it sometimes when there are details, because like Bossy's little picture that or the little picture that he created, like it allowed me to like go there and feel that. You know what I mean? And I feel like having those little details allows
makes
you
it real.
Sort of,
it makes it real.
It
makes it real.
Details, bro.
Yeah, who needs language?
It's like, because like Bossy painted a picture, like how many of us, he's talking about the spaghetti sauce, the bolognese and the pasta, and you can smell it.
Yeah.
Like you can smell the tomatoes and the herbs and the oregano, and you can actually put yourself there in that entire picture.
Yeah.
Yep. And you don't even really need language sometimes.
Yeah.
Because
picture's worth 1,000 words.
Not only that, our senses, like you were just describing, strangers that you can't communicate can walk into your home when something like that's going on, and automatically you understand there's love in the air. The cookie. Yeah.
Yep. And that's what I was meaning, like what Bossy was describing is like that was the whole visual thing that I had about the market stall, and just a whole group of people being together and just everyone kind of having all their stuff out, but it was not just about being there and making money. It was like community of just being there and laughing and chatting and talking and having a coffee or a tea, and just it was the whole experience of it, the feeling, the emotional feeling of the whole picture that you can describe, that you can feel. Yeah. Yes. Well, that takes us to 2 hours, guys, already. I can't believe we've been at this for 2 hours. I'm kind of shocked.
Can I ask one question real quick before?
Yeah, darling, of course.
I was just wondering, has anybody been noticing positive things lately, opposite than what we're usually bombarded with?
Yes.
Things that are coming up that surprise you and are positive, a good thing.
Yep.
I mean, besides the, besides our normal, oh, a child was born or someone got married or, these kinds of things. But I mean, unusual, unexpected little things. Yeah.
Yep. And that's kind of what I mean by the whole thing about, the dreaded M word, manifesting. That's kind of part of it too. Like just the things flowing right in certain ways. Yeah. No, I get it.
Because I think there's some good things happening. That I feel it. I get glimpses.
There is something. I know this is the overwhelming thing, and again, this comes back to all these videos and things. Osette mentions it in her latest video. I feel it. Everyone I've spoken to has talked about this impending something. Something is about to happen. You can feel it, and there's a subtlety to it too. And in a thought passes your mind about something that you should be looking after or blah blah blah, and then that kind of like almost like a very quick thought. It's just like I don't need to worry about that.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that.
Yeah,
don't have to worry about that.
No fear.
No, exactly. And so there is, I know exactly what you mean. There's this feeling that something is happening.
There's a sense of optimism creeping in, and it isn't coming from the Matrix.
Yeah, it ain't coming from the Matrix. Yep. No, I agree.
Yeah.
Okay, well, darlings, I will see you Sunday night for Fringe. We're going to do 3 episodes again. John, this is your notice ahead of time. We're going to do 3 episodes again of Fringe on Sunday night because it's the last 3 episodes of season 4. And we can't watch 2 episodes and leave it with the cliffhanger because the last 2 episodes are cliffhangers, but they're like 2 episodes together. So we can't do that. So we're going to watch 3 episodes of Fringe on Sunday night. Last 3 episodes of season 4. Yeah.
I snuck ahead and watched number 20, and holy shit, that's a good one too. But I didn't go and do 21 and 22.
Oh, yeah, this is it. This is really the intense time in Fringe. So that's it for us, guys. I want to say goodbye to everyone out there on Twitch land. Bye, Twitch. And I will see everyone on Sunday for Fringe. One other thing. I'm making a change. I've just decided right this moment, actually. I'm making a change to Unfuckers Unite. I kind of talked about this a little bit. I put a message in the Unfuckers Zoom room. I put a message in the Unfuckers Facebook group. I'm done with this membership. We have had nothing but problems. And I've just found out from John that now the plugin that we use for our membership on the website is literally destroyed. Like as in they've just fucking, it's like, just take it, throw it away. And as in the programming itself is fucked. The company itself has been like, yeah, this is garbage. To go and set up a brand new membership and re-enter everyone's information, etc. I've just been like, I can't do it. I'm so fucking sick and tired of this. So everyone right now has a free membership because it was the only way I could bypass all the fucking errors that we're getting on the membership. Everyone who is already a member of Unfuckers Unite now has a complimentary membership on top of whatever they have. I am going to turn off all the payments, and I need everyone to be aware that I'm going to turn on, and I will put a note on the website. If you want to keep your payment, some people want to make sure that money's coming in every month. And I've said what I'm going to do is just ask people every month for like basically donations. It's like, if you haven't paid for your membership, can you donate a little bit? Because we need to keep the sites up and running. And I give John a couple of $100 every month to help keep him in food and keep him up and running.
Great idea, Danny.
So
yep.
I'm going to, if someone new wants to join, they can just join, and it will be under the complimentary thing. And I'm asking basically like the honor system. It's like, pay what you can, when you can, to help keep us going. to keep the webs, because we have a lot of paid plugins. So for example, with I've bought all the software that I've bought that we're now using for the Unfuckers business group as well, with like the pro versions of various things, so that every other Unfuckers can all use it. Well, that's all coming from the membership fees from Unfuckers Unite. That's how I was able to do that and set that up. There is a way you can go on the site and make a donation. There is a donation button on the site, but there is a way for you to set it up as a monthly donation if you want to just set a monthly donation amount. But I'm just getting rid of the membership. I'm done. I'm so fucking done with it. I hate people can't get in because of this, that, and fucking the other. So I leave it up for everyone else to pay what you can when you can, to help keep the site going. And I'll just kind of put out reminders every month, be like, hey guys, just a little reminder that, we need to keep the site going.
Danny, since you speak of donations,
yeah.
Since people, I try to be off the grid. I don't like to use account data or what do you call it, credit cards and shit like that.
Yeah.
Would it help you out if, let's say, I buy, an Amazon gift card over here and send you the code? Would stuff like that help you out?
No,
make it a little bit easier?
Well, it does for me as a person. Sorry, I'm getting eaten alive by mosquitoes right now.
No, as a token of
yes,
appreciation. You know what I mean?
Yep. Clive just bought me a book that I really wanted to read, and he's sending that to me as like a gift donation. Yes, it does. And there's other, like if someone, for example, anyone within Canada can send an email money transfer directly to me, and it's free and it's easy and it's fast, like that, right? If you need me to generate you an invoice, which sometimes happens because you can't get PayPal to fucking work, although the donations seem to work on PayPal, whereas fucking purchasing something apparently gets all fucked up. If you have a problem, you can let me know. We can usually work it out. I mean, it may come down to, for example, Bossy, you make a deal with someone else. Like, as in, I had this just recently. I had someone who wanted to buy some products and couldn't get the PayPal to work to buy some products. She gave the money to a friend of hers. Her friend bought the products on her PayPal account.
And send it to you.
And just send it to me. So we can usually work it out. Things I've got wallet for cryptocurrencies that can be used.
Even that, like a little token.
You can also buy gift cards, Visa gift card, and then just wire that to her, right?
Yep. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know how that works for international stuff, Jane. You have to understand, we're not talking about international banking.
Right.
Sometimes you would think shit like that. I had someone lovely send me an Amazon gift card for my birthday, but it was for Amazon.com. And to use it and send anything from Amazon.com to Malta, it was basically like
but would you be in
$10 to buy the product and $30 in shipping. Like, but then what I did is I sent it to a friend of mine. I had a friend of mine. I said, hey, do you want an Amazon gift card? He was like, yeah, I can always use that. I said, okay, I'll give you the code. He gave him the code, and he just wired me the PayPal me some money to pay for it. And then I was able to take that money and buy off Amazon.uk to buy something for myself.
Oh, right.
Even better. Let's confuse them even more.
Hold on. Danny and @mail.com. There we go. Sorry, Gorf. I'm really bad at typing tonight. Apparently, I can't type tonight. Took me,
just
one
thinking
sentence took 10 minutes.
Just thinking real quick, $10. A $10 thing you mentioned. The thing was $10, but then the ship it, like where you mentioned, $30. I'm like, talk about unbalanced.
Yeah, exactly. And that's when it's just ridiculous, right? Which is why I have a lot of people who've said to me, why don't you move back to Canada? And the number one reason, other than winter, the number one reason that I can't move back to Canada is because shipping out of Canada is so horrifically expensive that my Gaia's Garden products would end up being 3 times the price? Because the shipping is so horrific. Like, people, you can't comprehend. Like I said, Nancy's not here tonight. Nancy sent me a package. Andrew was here. Andrea sent me a package once. The shipping out of Canada is highway extortion, is what it is. You can't I can't possibly run my business and be able to send products to Australia and Japan, and it's not possible. And that's my number one reason why I can't go back to Canada. It's just, that would be the end of Gaia's Garden. That would literally be the end. I would be crippled. Because no one is going to buy a bottle of C60 that costs $40 for the bottle of C60 and then costs another $15, $20 just to ship it.
Well, you know what, Danny? There's a few people in the United States that wouldn't mind if you came here.
Oh, sorry guys. We have to say goodbye to Steam. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry, John. Guys out in Steam, I love you. I'll talk to you later.